As they walked into the king's chamber, the king set his eyes on the young man and went blind instantly. Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom, a very kind and loving king died mysteriously without a heir. The whole kingdom was in a state of confusion as everyone wondered what will become of them now that their king was dead. Discussions of who will ascend the throne was now underway as the late king was the last of his lineage. The village chiefs agreed that in a time like this, the gods' knowledge would be beneficial, so they consulted with the chief priest of the village, who revealed that the gods had indeed chosen an heir, and the people requested to know who it was. The chief priest then revealed that he, the chief priest, had been chosen to rule the people as their king. Everyone's mouth opened in shock, as this had never been heard of before. A chief priest, who is the mouthpiece of the spirits, was now ascending the throne as king. Sounds of jubilations were heard as the people rejoiced at the intervention of the gods in helping them choose their next king. As days turned into weeks, the new king and his family moved into the royal palace. The king then decreed that no man in the village should be caught with a single grain of hair on his head, as only him, the king, would be allowed to grow his hair from then henceforth, and that anyone who defiles the king's orders would pay with his life. All the villagers murmured as they wondered why their king had made such a decree. As days passed, all the men of the village shaved off their hair, and this became a norm as no man dared to defile the king's orders. Princess Uloma, who was the king's only daughter, rained terror upon the people. She was so heartless and wicked and would use every given opportunity to oppress the villagers who dreaded her presence. The princess believed that as a princess, she was invincible and untouchable. She became increasingly power-hungry and oppressive as she used her status to instill fear and dominate the villagers. One day, Princess Uloma decided to take a stroll around the village market. She met a girl named Udo who sold eggs in her mother's stall. Udo was the most beautiful girl in the village, and everyone admired her, not only for her beauty but also her good character. When the princess caught sight of Udo, she approached her stall and began to push down several crates of eggs as she made fun of Udo, calling her all sorts of condescending names. Udo tried to confront the princess, who ordered her guards to beat her up as she watched. A young man named Echezona was passing by and witnessed all that happened. He decided to step in to save Udo, who he clearly saw did nothing wrong to the princess. The princess felt challenged by this as she commanded her guards to beat up both Echezona and Udo, but to her greatest surprise, her guards were unable to beat Echezona because he was extremely strong. Seeing how everything turned out, the princess returned to her father's palace angry. She approached her father and informed him of how a young man who had long hair challenged her in the market square. Long hair? Her father exclaimed as he sent his guards to go fetch the young man who dared to defile his orders by not shaving his head. The king was so furious as he could not wait to see this man who not only defiled his orders but also challenged his daughter, the princess. The king's guards went out in search of Echezona but could not find him. They searched the whole village, but Echezona was nowhere to be found. They returned and informed the king of their inability to locate the young man, and the king angrily proclaimed that if by the next morning the young man had not been located, the guards and their families would be put to death. The guards combed the whole village that night, asking everyone they came across for the whereabouts of the young man, but no one had seen him. When morning came, the king ordered that the guards and their family members be locked up in the palace dungeon as they await the day of their death. The villagers were terrified to hear this, as they could not believe how heartless their king was. They began to cry out to God to save them from the hands of their wicked king and his heartless daughter. Days passed, and an old man visited the king's palace to deliver a message to the king. He revealed that the gods were extremely angry and were warning him to do the right thing before their wrath would come upon him. When the king heard this, he accused the old man of threatening the king, saying that no one in the village had the power to speak to the gods except himself, as not only was he the king, but also the chief priest of the village and the mouthpiece of the gods. The king then ordered that the old man be hanged, as he dared to lie to the king. As the guards were about to arrest the old man, he disappeared, leaving everyone in shock, including the king. That same night, the king fell terribly ill, and the princess ordered that the most powerful herbalist in the village be summoned to heal her father. All efforts by the herbalist to heal the king proved abortive, as the king's condition worsened. Some palace maidens then approached the princess to reveal the existence of a powerful healer who lived in the neighboring village and had been rumored to possess great healing powers. The princess, out of desperation, sent her guards to fetch the powerful healer from the neighboring village. After a few hours, the guards brought in the healer to meet with the princess. When the princess set her eyes on the healer, she noticed that the healer was the young man who challenged her in the market a while ago. "What are you doing here?" the princess said with disgust in her voice. She could not believe that the life of her father, the king, now rested in the hands of a man who she so despised. Left with no other option, the princess pleaded with the young man to heal her father, promising that he will be greatly rewarded if he successfully heals the king. As they walked into the king's chamber, the king set his eyes on the young man and went blind instantly. The princess, on seeing what had just happened, ordered for the immediate arrest of the young man, as she accused him of trying to kill her father, the king. The palace guards then locked Echezona up in the dungeon, and as the days went by, word began to circulate that the king was dying. All efforts to heal the king proved abortive, and the members of the king's cabinet suggested that the king consult the gods, as he was still the chief priest of the village and the mouthpiece of the gods. They brought in his staff of authority, which he used to communicate with the gods, and immediately the king held the staff of authority, he was struck dead by a great power. The whole village was now in shock, as they began to mourn the death of their king. A few days passed, and the princess announced her decision to take up the mantle of authority by becoming queen. There was a wave of sadness that moved through the village as the villagers dreaded her reign. Her wicked deeds still rang in their minds, and the villagers all contemplated on what to do. One night, the whole village decided to gather and pray to God to save them. In one voice, they cried as they were tired of bad leadership in their village. They all went to bed that night and had a collective dream. A dream that was seen by all the villagers, including children. An old man revealed to the villagers in the dream that the chief priest, who assumed authority as king, lied to the villagers that he had been chosen to rule over them. He also revealed that their rightful king was the one whose hair was still attached to his head, and that the chief priest knew this, hence the reason why he ordered all the men of the village to shave their heads so that he would be the only one left in the village with hair on his head. The man revealed that the reason why the king went blind was because he looked into the eyes of the rightful king of the village, whose position he stole because of greed. Greed that finally ended his life, as he was warned to do the right thing but decided to go against the wishes of God. By morning, the whole village woke up and realized that they all had the same dream. This could only be a sign from God, so they moved in one accord to the palace dungeon to free Echezona, who was their rightful king. Everyone jubilated as they knew that their days of suffering was over. Princess Uloma could not believe how the tables had turned as she pleaded with Echezona to have mercy on her. She knew that she would be banished from the village for all her atrocious deeds, so she pleaded with Echezona to allow her serve in the palace as a maid to atone for her sins, and Echezona agreed on the condition that she first apologized to the entire village for all she had done to them. That was how Princess Uloma became a palace maiden in a palace that she once ruled as a princess, and learned the hard way that no condition in life is permanent. The lesson to be learned from this story is that pride comes before the fall. In whatever situation we find ourselves, we should not oppress people that we believe cannot do anything for us. We should learn how to be kind and considerate to everyone we come across, as life in itself is unpredictable. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.